Hello, I'm Dr. Bill. Welcome to Dr. Bill 360, where we explore the essential world of organizational development and leadership, training, and e-learning. Are you ready to transform your professional skills and understanding? Join me as I delve into not just the what, but the how of turning your potential into performance. Let's start our journey together on Dr. Bill 360, episode 1. So in this episode, the theme is starting strong, junior college, the rule of sevens, and authentic leadership. One of the first things I'd like to point out is I have my PhD, but the journey wasn't always so smooth. So I'd like to start out by saying that junior college, right, is a valuable journey. So, again, I have my PhD. It wasn't always that way, right? So I'd like to share my journey in the hopes that others, including parents, might benefit. So for those planning to go to college or university, let me emphasize the value of starting at community college first. Now, I'm not sure how involved your parents are or were, or if they've been to college before, but if they haven't, then they don't really know maybe, some of the good things about junior college or things that can happen at a school, a Big Ten school, right? So my father took courses at a community college as a part of work, okay? He worked for General Motors, but at the time, I didn't know about it until many years later. I mean, I was an adult. And so he really didn't talk much about it. And so essentially I was the first to go to college, a really big university, Michigan State University in East Lansing, not to be confused with the Wolverines, So Michigan State has some 45,000 undergraduate plus. That's right, 45,000 undergraduate. I think the year I went there, it was Magic Johnson's senior year, somewhere around there, 1980, 81. And, the campus was big, had a river going through it. I mean, bike paths. If you didn't watch where you were going, you cross a bike path, you might get hit. The first year, classes were early, and they just had too many parties. I couldn't keep up, and needless to say, I don't want to really go into all that, but it didn't go so well. So the following year, or let's say that summer after the end of that period, I left. To be more specific, my mother asked my uncle to pick me up because I didn't have money. I really made a mess out of it. So anyway, when I got back, I joined the Navy and didn't look back for a long time. I joined submarines, etc. But anyway, years later in the Navy, I got back to the community college, Brevard Community College in Melbourne, Florida, near Cocoa Beach. So I got out of there with a 4.0 average. Later, in another Navy program, a commissioning program, a 4-year program at Old Dominion University, right near Norfolk State. It was part of Hampton Roads University, or Hampton Roads, NROTC Hampton Roads. So Old Dominion University, Norfolk State, and Hampton. So my major there was political science. I got out of there with a 3.55. Later, after commissioning and leaving the submarine force and going to the surface, I continued in another Navy program for my master's in business. So I had my MBA, Master's Business Administration, in another Navy program. I got out of there with a 3.8. Retired, went to work at a maritime academy in Malaysia. And then several years later, continued my Navy-funded education for a PhD. I ran out of money. There are several programs I jumped across, something we call VEAP, right? The Veterans Educational Assistance Program, and then the Montgomery GI Bill, and a few others. GI Bill. So I got my PhD in organizational development and leadership and ended up with a 3.95 GPA. Now, so what's the point other than to talk about my GPAs? I want to say that starting at a community college set me up for success. When I was in the Navy, had my head on, screwed on tight, and went back to Brevard Community College, it set me up for success. Now, your sons and daughters may want to go straight to a Big Ten university or a HBU. I would suggest that they do the 2 years in the community college first and make sure that their courses will match up with when they go to a university, because sometimes, because it happened to me in one sense, humanities and fine arts may not match up. So some courses may not match up from the 2 year to the 4 year unless it's a sister university. So be careful about that. And I would say, if you don't go to the community college first and you go to the Big Ten and you end up with a 2.5 or below GPA, it's really, when you sit down for a job interview, this thing is really just on your forehead. So they're asking you interview questions, and basically what's happening is every time you're talking, they can see this sign, 2.5 neon sign across your forehead. Okay. So the common misconception, about needing to start at some prestigious university is not necessarily true. You can end up there after 2 years. Okay. So there are many challenges and distractions of campus life on a very large university, for which I really don't want to go into here, but maybe if we get some comments about it in the comments, maybe I'll say something more about that. Now, some essential study habits that I learned along the way that helped me with this 4.0, 355, 3.8, and 395. I call it the rule of sevens. So the ideal is to box in the grade you want, like let's say an A, and I use the rule of sevens to help me get there for effective study. Right. So essentially what it means is I need to put my eyes on the material several times, at least several times. It could be 8 or 9, at least several times before the exam. And interestingly enough, they hand you a syllabus and tell you what they're going to be talking about for the semester. So the first thing we have to do, we get the syllabus. We see what, the immediate subjects are, the material. We get familiar, we get the book. Yes. What I used to do, humor, I used to say, okay, I get the book, I weigh it, see how much you weigh, smell it, open up the books, get the sound. I'm getting familiar with the material, right? So on this first rule of 7, getting familiar with the book, I open it, I look at the chapters, that I'm supposed to be reading. I kind of skim it, skim, with the fingers, and look at the titles. So I'm not really getting into the reading, but I'm skimming it. I know what's in the chapter. So now I am at least familiar with what's in the chapter. I've done it. I got the book. I weighed it, smelled it. 2, I got to do some serious skim reading. I stop at some interesting, bold areas. I read a little bit. That was interesting. Move on. Now I've gotten familiar with the book. I'm kind of interested in reading it, and move on to 3. I read the chapter and understand the assignments. Okay. And possibly do the homework now. We can call that 4, or you can do it later. Now, by the time I get to class, let's say Monday, I may not have done the homework yet. I may wait. So when the teacher's actually talking about it in class now, right? I've skimmed it, I've read it, possibly done the homework. I have some questions, right? I probably don't understand all of it. But now when they're in class talking about, I can, right there, that part, when you were talking about this, blah, blah, blah. So the teacher and I, or the professor and I, are kind of having a conversation, But he's not necessarily going over what's going to be on the test. But some of my questions are all on what he's talking about, but related. Now, some of the other people in the classroom probably wondering, what are they talking about? This is probably the first time they've actually even heard this material, right? They didn't read it. They didn't do anything. They just came in class. Okay. So I'm well into number 3 and 4. Okay. And I'm taking notes. Right. So I'm engaged in class, asking questions and interacting with the professor. We can call that 5. Okay. Again, I may do number 4 of the homework before or after that class for clarity. Okay. So I'm well on my way, right? Done the assignment, engaged in class, got some answers, interacted with the professor. I took some notes. Now 6, when I get home, I rewrite the notes for understanding, write it, organize it, 1A sub, A11, whatever. It goes, you write it, organize it, goes in, organize it, comes out, organized. Okay. So, okay, we're going to have a test, on Wednesday, or a quiz on Wednesday or something like that. So I study for that, right? We can call that 6.5 or 7, right? Let's just call it 6.5, the quiz. I study for the quiz. Okay. So now the test is coming up. So now I really have to, review the material, study. I've done the homework. I reviewed the homework, my notes. Okay. So now I'm really focusing on boxing in the A like I told you before. Okay. So at this point, several times, probably 8 times you can count it, right? And I still have to put on here number 8 for me is get proper rest and nutrition before the test. I'm not going to be one of those people that stay up late. And, some of my classmates used to take help. They used to take speed and all this kind of stuff, stay up late, pull all-nighters. They're tired. I get a good rest. My routine is I used to get up, in good time. I may crack open a book and look at something, but I'm not going to jam my head full. I already know that. I'd go to Burger King's, get me a croissant, egg and cheese croissant, get some coffee and an orange juice, get a decent meal, go in there, bam, knock it down, cha-ching. And they say, oh, man, what did you get on the test? A. Right? Oh, man, you're smart. I stop them right there. Don't do that. Right? Don't call me smart. I'm not going to, what, you can't take a compliment? No, it's not that. He said, I'm not going to let you get away with trying to call me smart to say that you couldn't do it. So anyway, rule of 7s, if you want to know more about it. And then one of the last things I'd like to talk about in this first podcast is that on leadership, right? Leading with authenticity, right? It's the first step to effective leadership in my mind. So some key points to remember, and when we talk about authenticity in leadership, is authenticity is a fundamental quality of effective leadership, but it takes self-awareness, transparency, integrity, consistency, empathy, compassion, and the ability to inspire and motivate. That's a mouthful. Self-awareness, transparency, integrity, consistency, empathy, compassion, and the ability to inspire and motivate. People are watching you. You have to walk the talk. So authentic leaders inspire trust and foster a positive work culture. So let me share a few personal anecdotes and examples where authenticity significantly impacted my leadership experience. So as far as self-awareness in leadership, whether as I was a first lieutenant in the Navy or bosun, weapons officer, or missiles officer, operations officer, and I needed to understand, one needs to understand what their capabilities are. You need to know what you can and cannot do, right? And people let you know, and sometimes the lessons are painful in the Navy, and how your leadership style impacts your people. You can say, I don't care, I'm going to do it my way, but your leadership style impacts the people that you lead. So I encourage the listeners to reflect on their values, strengths, and weaknesses. So some tools and methods for this, for gaining self-insight are reflective journaling. Write it down in your own little journal and feedback. right? Feedback maybe from your trusted peers, but don't tell them everything because, you know, the walls have ears. Journaling also helped me when I was challenged by a senior, but I had receipts, if you know what I mean. You know, um, so transparency and integrity, right? Being open and honest about all the communication. Now, everything, you know, your people, like when I was an officer, the enlisted people didn't need to know everything. Okay. But I was honest with them, right? Actions aligning with the words, right? Walk the talk. So in the military and also when I was doing my job as a lecturer at a maritime academy, integrity is paramount, right? People can only forgive you once or twice, you know, but when they see you really stepping out of line, it's not good for you, right? So at my positions where I required a high level of honesty, it required that ethical behavior, managing weapon systems, leading operations, demonstrating consistency between what I said and what I did, help build trust and credibility among the team. Consistency, maintaining the same principles and behaviors. But I'm a good listener, right? Which helps followers feel more secure and they know what to expect. Consistency, right? In the various roles from gunnery, acting chief engineer, provided stability for the team. Consistency in high pressure situations. Solicit inputs, but you have to make the decision. Leadership happens from the front, not behind the side. So solicit inputs, but even in crisis management, your team is assured that, you know, you listen, you took inputs, and we're doing the best thing. And if we need to make a correction, we'll make it. But it's all transparent out there in the open, and it promoted an authentic, stable environment. Empathy and compassion. You know, sharing feelings. I remember when I was a missiles officer this time, and I had a gunner's mate first class, a missiles officer, you know, hardcore guy. He knocked on my stateroom one time. Knocked on my stateroom door one time. He came in. Hey, have a seat. So what can I do for you? And man, he started breaking down and kind of, you know, whimpering and crying. I'd never seen that. And I was kind of a little confused about how to handle that. Apparently, he had a disabled kid, and they were supposed to put ramps and make his house better for that. And there was a huge delay, I guess, and the wife was giving him a lot of pressure, and he had pressure at work too. You know, a lot of pressure there, and he was breaking down. Now I got involved, and we got it done, but just to show you, you know, like I said, he was an E6, Gunner's Mate Missiles First Class. And, you know, it's not something, he was always hardcore. It's not something you would expect from him. And he didn't go to his chief. He came to see me. That's saying something. So, you know, there's a lot of diversity involved in that, you know, cultural diversity, stress, you know, military situations. You know, I was on a combatant vessel, you know, one of those big warships. But empathy is crucial in maintaining morale and part of this authentic process, right? Understanding the challenges faced by your people. Your role often requires balancing mission needs with the welfare of your team. Take care of your people and they will take care of you. They'll be doing things and you don't even know they're doing them for you. Inspire and motivate. You must walk the talk. People can see when you're not, right? I remember when I was first trying to qualify, you know, I got commissioned. I went to the warship, and there's just too many systems. It's very stressful on a combatant warship for a junior officer to qualify officer to deck and get his warfare pin, right? And I was having some problems. They were kicking my butt, to be nicely. And the chief's mess came up to me. One of the senior chiefs came up to me, and they said, "Sir, they got you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "They got you." He said, "Look at yourself." I mean, my uniform wasn't in the best shape. Shoes wasn't shine. I needed a haircut, man. I looked at myself and I said, "Oh, man, they got me." I mean, even now, I almost want to, they got you. And he said, The chief said, look, the mess we got together, we cover all of the systems on board the ship. We got you. See, I was prior enlisted, right? He said, whatever you need. And he said, but please, sir, take care of yourself. You know, get your uniform in shape, cut your hair, and don't let them get you. And I always remember that. You know, I can see when people are having that, you know, step in, lead with the heart, you know, compassion and commitment in the leadership role, not being soft. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about the well-being of your team members. So there's a commitment to your duty and the team, well-being and stuff, especially in roles like I was in roles like acting chief engineer on board of the frigate, operations officer, demonstrated, you know, leading from the heart. People can see, you know, stern. I don't know if I'd say strict, but I mean, I walked that line. And whenever we had problems or something didn't go right and we came to the department head meetings, I was talking to the crew and the senior leadership, you know, in my department, you know, we'd bring it up, say what the problems were, and I would do my little fingers like this. In the Navy, a lot of times this means turn to. Let's do it. Get it done. But I used it, you know, unscrew it, you know, but I used the other word, you know, right. I didn't micromanage, but I demanded that they fix it, right? I'd listen to them, right? And then, you know, I'd be like, okay, chief, unscrew it. It got to the point where I didn't even have to say the words anymore. We'd have problems. I'd listen. I said, well, what are we going to do about it? Do you need my help, assistance? No, sir. We got it. And then I'd go like this, and they go, yes, sir, we know. Unscrew it. Right. We never had that problem again. Trust. Right. So in trying to close up here and provide the listeners maybe with some simple exercises to start identifying your authentic leadership, right? Such as writing things down, maybe 3 core values to start with that you want to embody in your leadership. For me, for example, you got to be a great listener, not a good listener. You got to listen. That means listen with empathy, you know, and you should be able maybe to repeat back some things and let you know that, you know, you heard them. Inspire others to greatness, not just yourself. You make others around you great. And have empathy and compassion, right? So those are some good ones to start with. So as we recap, right, we talked about junior college having value. Remember that. I also encourage the listeners to apply the rule of 7s and also reflect on their authentic approach to leadership. So if you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who could benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time as we explore the transformational insights and strategies on Dr. Bill 360. So thank you for joining us on this journey at Dr. Bill 360, where we explore the intersections of organizational development, leadership, cultural competence. And remember, every day is an opportunity to learn and transform. For more insights and resources, visit our website at ciwlearning.net, ciwlearning.net, and follow us on the YouTube channel at Dr. Bill 360. Until next time, I'm Dr. Bill, and here's to your 360-degree transformation. Keep learning, keep growing, and see you in the next episode.